Millionaire mocked his childless ex-wife at the gala night. 5 minutes later, his triplets stormed the stage. And I want to thank everyone who believed in me. Everyone except my ex-wife, who gave me nothing but criticism and complaints, not even children to show for those wasted years. Laughter rippled through the Peninsula Hotel ballroom. Champagne glasses clinked. Camera flashes sparkled like stars. Then, the double doors at the back burst open. The laughter died. 3 boys in matching navy suits walked down the center aisle. Their shoes clicked against marble in perfect rhythm. The middle one held a white poster board high above his head. Black marker letters screamed across it, "Dad, we've been waiting for you to come home for 6 years." Fletcher's trophy slipped from his hands. It hit the stage. The crack echoed through the silent room like a gunshot. The boy holding the sign looked up at Fletcher with eyes identical to his own. Blue, serious, unblinking. He didn't lower the sign. He just stood there with his 2 brothers flanking him, waiting. A woman's voice cut through the silence from the back of the room. "Boys, let's go." Sutton Hayes walked down the aisle in a modest navy dress. She placed her hands on the boy's shoulders and turned them toward the exit. But before she left, she looked back at Fletcher one time. Her face wasn't angry. It was something worse. Disappointed. The doors closed behind them. Every phone in the ballroom was recording. Every camera was flashing. Fletcher stood frozen on stage, staring at the empty aisle where his 3 sons had just stood. The sons he told 500 people didn't exist. Have you ever said something you couldn't take back? Something that felt powerful in the moment but destroyed everything you touched? Fletcher Hayes did. And 40 million people watched it happen. But here's what those 40 million people didn't see. What happened after the cameras stopped rolling? What happened when a man who had everything lost it all in 30 seconds? And what it actually takes to earn back the trust of 3 boys who waited 6 years for their father to come home. This isn't just a story about public humiliation. It's about what we lose when we chase success at any cost, and what we find when we finally stop running. Because Fletcher Hayes spent 40 years climbing to the top, and it took 3 8-year-olds in matching suits to show him he'd been climbing the wrong mountain the entire time. If you've ever wondered what really matters in life, stay with me. This story will break your heart. Then it will put it back together in a way you never expected. Before we dive in, I want you to do something. Think about the last time you told someone you were too busy. Too busy for dinner. Too busy for a phone call. Too busy to show up. Now imagine those moments adding up over years, over a lifetime, until one day you look around and realize everyone you said you were too busy for has stopped waiting. That's where our story begins, with a man who was never too busy for success, but always too busy for the people who loved him. Let's go back to the beginning, to the night that changed everything. The Chicago Peninsula Hotel glowed like a jewel on a cold November evening. Limousines lined the circular driveway. Men in tuxedos and women in designer gowns stepped onto red carpets. Camera flashes exploded in bursts of white light. This was the Midwest Real Estate Developers Gala, the most prestigious event of the year, where millionaires celebrated other millionaires for being exceptional at making money. Fletcher Hayes arrived in a black limousine at 7:15. He stepped out onto the red carpet wearing a custom Tom Ford tuxedo that cost $4,000. His dark hair was styled perfectly. His shoes were Italian leather, polished to a mirror shine. At 39 years old, Fletcher looked exactly like what he was: successful, powerful, untouchable. His date, Veronica, slid out of the limousine behind him. She was a corporate attorney with sharp cheekbones and sharper ambition. Her red dress probably cost more than most people's monthly rent. She took Fletcher's arm with a practiced smile. "Ready to accept your crown?" she asked. Fletcher smiled back. "I've been ready for this my whole life." They walked past the photographers. Reporters shouted questions from behind velvet ropes. "Mr. Hayes, how does it feel to be named Developer of the Year?" Fletcher stopped and turned toward the cameras. This was his moment. He'd worked 16-hour days for 15 years to get here. "It feels like validation," he said smoothly. "Success doesn't happen by accident. It requires sacrifice, focus, the ability to cut out anything that doesn't serve your vision." "What's next for Hayes Property Group?" Another reporter called out. "Expansion. We're looking at projects in 3 new markets. Chicago is just the beginning. More flashes. More questions." Fletcher answered them all with the confidence of a man who'd never failed at anything. Veronica smiled beside him, looking beautiful and bored. They finally made it inside the ballroom. The space was breathtaking. Crystal chandeliers hung from vaulted ceilings. Each one probably cost more than a car. Round tables covered in white linens filled the room. Centerpieces of white roses and candles glowed on every surface. At the front of the room, a stage was set up with a podium and a screen for presentations. This was where Chicago's elite came to see and be seen, to make deals over $1,200 bottles of wine, to network and schmooze and pretend they cared about anything other than their own success. Fletcher loved it. Owen Chambers spotted Fletcher from across the room and waved. Owen was Fletcher's business partner and the closest thing Fletcher had to a friend. He wore a gray suit and his usual easy smile. "There he is," Owen said, shaking Fletcher's hand. "Man of the hour." "How does it feel?" "Ask me after I give my speech," Fletcher said. "Confident. I like it." Owen nodded to Veronica. "You look stunning as always." "Thank you, Owen," Veronica said with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. They made their way to their table near the front of the room. Other developers and investors were already seated. They stood when Fletcher approached. Handshakes all around. Congratulations. Small talk about markets and interest rates and projected returns. Fletcher sat down and surveyed the room. 500 people. All of them successful. All of them wealthy. All of them here to celebrate him tonight. A waiter appeared with champagne. Fletcher took a glass. The bubbles tickled his throat as he drank. Veronica sat beside him, checking her phone. Owen was talking to someone about a development deal in Milwaukee. Fletcher felt a surge of satisfaction wash over him. This was everything he'd wanted. Everything he'd worked for. Proof that he'd made it. That he mattered. That he was someone. His phone buzzed in his pocket. He pulled it out and glanced at the screen. An email from his assistant about a meeting next week. He replied quickly and put the phone away. The lights dimmed. Conversation quieted. A man walked onto the stage. Thomas Wright, chairman of the Midwest Real Estate Council. He wore a black tuxedo and carried himself with the authority of old money. "Good evening, ladies and gentlemen," Thomas said into the microphone. His voice filled the ballroom. "Thank you all for being here tonight. We gather once a year to recognize excellence in our industry, to celebrate those among us who don't just build buildings, they build legacies." Applause rippled through the room. Thomas continued. "Tonight's honoree is someone who embodies that spirit of excellence. At just 39 years old, he's built Hayes Property Group into a $200 million enterprise. His developments have transformed neighborhoods across 3 states. His vision has created thousands of jobs and millions in economic impact. Please join me in welcoming this year's Developer of the Year, Fletcher Hayes." The room erupted in applause. People stood. Fletcher rose from his seat and buttoned his jacket. Veronica squeezed his arm. Owen gave him a thumbs up. Fletcher walked toward the stage. The spotlight followed him. He climbed the 3 steps and shook Thomas's hand. The older man handed him a heavy crystal trophy. The words "Developer of the Year" were etched into the glass. Below that, Midwest Real Estate Council and the year. Fletcher held it up. More applause. Camera flashes from every direction. This was it. The pinnacle. The proof that he'd made something of himself. He stepped to the microphone. The applause faded. 500 faces looked up at him expectantly. Fletcher cleared his throat. "Thank you. Thank you so much. This is truly an honor." He paused. Let the moment breathe. This was a skill he'd learned. How to command a room. How to make people hang on your every word. "I want to start by saying something important," Fletcher continued. "Success is not complicated. People want to make it complicated. They want to talk about luck or timing or privilege. But the truth is simpler than that. Success requires work, dedication, the ability to focus on what matters and ignore everything else." Heads nodded throughout the room. These were people who believed in hard work, in meritocracy, in the idea that they'd earned everything they had. "I grew up with nothing," Fletcher said. This was his favorite part of the story. The rags to riches narrative that made everything sweeter. "My father worked in a factory in Detroit. My mother cleaned houses. We lived in a neighborhood where gunshots were more common than birds singing. I knew from a young age that I wanted something different, something better." The room was silent, captivated. "So I worked. I studied. I got scholarships. I put myself through college and business school. I started Hayes Property Group in a tiny office with nothing but a laptop and a dream. And I built it, brick by brick, deal by deal, hour by hour. More applause. Fletcher felt the energy in the room. They loved this story, the self-made man, the American dream. But I didn't do it alone, Fletcher said. I want to thank everyone who helped me get here tonight. My team at Hayes Property Group. You work harder than any team in this business. Thank you. Applause from his employees scattered throughout the room. My investors. You believed in my vision when others doubted. Thank you. More applause. My mentors, the people who taught me what excellence looks like. Thank you. Fletcher paused. He looked out at the sea of faces. And then he said it, the line he'd been planning all week, the joke he thought would kill. I want to thank everyone who believed in me, everyone who supported me, everyone who helped me get here. He paused for effect. Everyone except my ex-wife, who gave me nothing but criticism and complaints. Not even children to show for those wasted years. Laughter erupted, loud at first, then growing as people realized it was okay to laugh. That this was meant to be funny. Some people laughed so hard they had to wipe their eyes. Others shook their heads with knowing smiles. Like they understood, like they'd all been there. Veronica was smiling. Owen was chuckling and shaking his head. Even Thomas Wright on the side of the stage had a small grin. Fletcher felt a rush of satisfaction. The joke landed. The room was his. This was perfect. But seriously, Fletcher said, riding the wave of laughter. Sometimes the best business decision is knowing when to cut your losses, and that includes relationships that hold you back from. The ballroom doors exploded open. The sound was so loud it echoed off the vaulted ceilings. Every head in the room turned. 3 boys stood in the doorway. They couldn't have been more than 8 or 9 years old. They wore matching navy blue suits with white shirts and red ties. Their hair was combed neatly. Their shoes were polished but clearly not expensive. They stood in a formation, 1 in front, 2 slightly behind. The boy in front held something, a large white poster board. He held it high above his head with both hands. The room was completely silent. You could have heard a pin drop. The 3 boys started walking down the center aisle between the tables. Their shoes clicked against the marble floor. Click, click, click. The sound was rhythmic, steady, determined. Fletcher's hands started shaking. His mouth went dry. His heart pounded so hard he could feel it in his throat. No. No, 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 no. The boys kept walking. Closer, closer. The boy in front never lowered the sign. As they got closer, Fletcher could read the words written in thick black marker. Dad, we've been waiting for you to come home for 6 years. Fletcher's vision tunneled. The edges of his sight went dark. All he could see were those 3 boys. Those 3 faces. Faces he recognized. Faces that looked like his own. Finn, Crew, Reed, his sons. The triplets he'd walked away from when they were 2 years old. The children he hadn't called in 6 years. The boys he hadn't sent a birthday card or a Christmas present. The sons he'd just told 500 people didn't exist. They stopped at the front of the room, directly in front of the stage. They stood there in perfect stillness. 3 8-year-olds who'd somehow found the courage to walk into a ballroom, full of strangers, and confront their father in front of everyone. The boy holding the sign. That was Finn. Fletcher was almost sure. The oldest by 4 minutes. He had sandy blonde hair and eyes the exact color of Fletcher's, blue with little flecks of gray. Serious eyes. Eyes that had seen too much disappointment for 8 years old. The boy on the left, Crew, darker hair than his brother's, quieter face. He wasn't crying. He wasn't angry. He just stood there, watching, waiting. The boy on the right, Reed, the smallest of the 3. He held a stuffed dinosaur in one hand. His eyes were wide, nervous, but he stood there with his brothers. United. Fletcher tried to speak. His mouth opened. No sound came out. His throat had closed completely. The crystal trophy in his hands felt like it weighed 1,000 pounds. Somewhere in the ballroom, a phone camera clicked. Then another, then a dozen. Flashes started going off like fireworks. Fletcher's hands were shaking so badly the trophy slipped. He tried to catch it. His fingers grasped at air. The crystal trophy fell. It hit the wooden stage with a sound like thunder. The trophy didn't shatter, not completely, but cracks spider-webbed across the crystal. Fracture lines spread out from the impact point. The trophy split into 3 large pieces and dozens of smaller shards. The sound broke the spell. Everyone started talking at once. Whispers became murmurs, became a roar of conversation. Phones came out of purses and pockets. Everyone was recording. Everyone was filming. This was the kind of moment that went viral. A woman appeared at the back of the ballroom. She walked down the aisle with her head held high. Fletcher recognized her instantly, even though he hadn't seen her in 6 years. Sutton Hayes, his ex-wife, the mother of his children. She wore a simple navy dress, nothing like the designer gowns around her. Her dark hair was pulled back in a low ponytail. She had dark circles under her eyes. She looked tired, older than he remembered, but her face was strong. Her jaw was set. Sutton reached the boys and placed her hands on their shoulders. She didn't look at Fletcher. She turned the boys around and started walking them back toward the exit. But just before she reached the doors, she stopped. She turned her head and looked back at Fletcher. Her expression wasn't angry. That would have been easier. Anger Fletcher could understand, could fight against. But this was disappointment, sadness, pity, almost. Like she was looking at a man who'd lost something precious and didn't even know it. Then she turned away and walked out. The doors closed behind her with a soft click. The ballroom exploded. Everyone was talking, shouting questions. Reporters rushed toward the stage. Thomas Wright appeared at Fletcher's elbow. "We need to get you out of here," Thomas said quietly. Fletcher couldn't move. He stood there staring at the closed doors. His mind was blank. White noise filled his head. 2 security guards appeared on stage. They took Fletcher's arms and guided him toward a side exit. His legs moved automatically. He wasn't controlling them. He was just following, being led. Veronica appeared beside him. Her face was pale. Her perfect composure had cracked. "Fletcher," she hissed, "you have children. You told me you were never married. You told me—" "Not now," one of the security guards said. They moved through a back hallway. Staff members pressed themselves against the walls to let them pass. Everyone stared. Everyone knew. Fletcher could see it in their faces. The shock, the judgment, the gossip already forming. They exited through a service door into the cold November air. Fletcher's limousine was already there. His driver had pulled it around. The security guards opened the door. Fletcher climbed in. Veronica got in beside him, but sat as far away as possible. The door closed. "Drive," Fletcher said. His voice sounded strange, hollow. The car pulled away from the hotel. Fletcher looked back once. Through the tinted windows, he could see reporters spilling out of the building. Cameras, phones, everyone searching for him. They drove in silence. Veronica stared at her phone. Her thumbs moved rapidly across the screen, texting someone, probably her friends, probably already distancing herself from him. The limousine stopped at a red light. Veronica looked up at Fletcher. Her eyes were cold. "I can't be associated with this," she said. "What?" "This. You. A man who abandons his children." She shook her head. "I have a reputation to protect." The light turned green. The car started moving again. "So that's it?" Fletcher asked. "You're done?" "I'm done." Veronica's voice was ice. "Lose my number, Fletcher." They arrived at her apartment building first. Veronica got out without another word. The door slammed. She walked into her building without looking back. Fletcher rode the rest of the way alone. The driver didn't speak. They pulled up to Fletcher's building on Lakeshore Drive. A doorman opened the car door. Fletcher got out and walked into the lobby. The doorman nodded politely, but Fletcher saw the look in his eyes. He knew too. Probably already saw it online. Fletcher rode the elevator to the 42nd floor. The penthouse, his sanctuary, 3,000 square feet of marble and glass and expensive furniture. Floor-to-ceiling windows with views of Lake Michigan and the Chicago skyline. He walked inside, and the door closed behind him. Silence. Complete and total silence. Fletcher stood in his living room and looked around. Leather couch that cost $15,000. Abstract art on the walls. A kitchen with appliances he never used because he always ordered in or ate at restaurants. A dining table that seated 12, but had never had more than 4 people at it. Everything was perfect. Everything was expensive. Everything was empty. Fletcher walked to the bar and pulled out a bottle of whiskey. He didn't bother with a glass. He drank straight from the bottle. The liquid burned his throat. He drank again and again. His phone started ringing. He pulled it out of his pocket and looked at the screen. Owen. He didn't answer. The call went to voicemail. Immediately the phone rang again. Different name. Someone from the board. He didn't answer. The phone kept ringing. Different names. Different numbers. Some he recognized. Some he didn't. Fletcher turned the phone off. He threw it onto the couch. He walked to the windows and looked out at the city. Chicago spread out before him like a blanket of lights. Beautiful. Cold. Indifferent. Fletcher drank more whiskey. His mind kept replaying the moment. The doors opening. The three boys walking down the aisle. The sign. Their faces. God, their faces. They looked so much like him. Finn especially. Same eyes. Same chin. Same serious expression Fletcher saw in the mirror every morning. And he didn't even know them. He couldn't tell you what grade they were in, what their favorite foods were, what they were afraid of, what made them laugh. He'd helped create 3 human beings, and he knew nothing about them. Fletcher sat down on his expensive couch in his expensive penthouse and drank whiskey until the bottle was half empty, until the room started spinning, until he felt nothing. But even drunk, he couldn't escape the image burned into his brain. 3 boys in matching suits, standing in front of a room full of strangers, holding a sign. Dad, we've been waiting for you to come home for 6 years. Fletcher woke up on his couch fully clothed. Sunlight streamed through the floor-to-ceiling windows. His head pounded. His mouth tasted like something had died in it. The whiskey bottle lay on its side on the coffee table. A small puddle had leaked onto the marble. He sat up slowly. The room spun. He put his head in his hands and waited for the nausea to pass. His phone. Where was his phone? Fletcher found it wedged between the couch cushions. He turned it on. The screen lit up. Notifications flooded in. Hundreds of them. Text messages, missed calls, emails, social media notifications. Fletcher's hands shook as he opened his email. The first one was from Owen. Subject line, "We need to talk. Call Mea Sap." He scrolled down. An email from Patricia Henderson, his lawyer. Subject, urgent, legal implications. Another from someone on his board of directors. Subject, emergency meeting scheduled. Fletcher closed his email and opened social media. He immediately wished he hadn't. The video was everywhere. Someone had posted it. The clip of him giving his speech. The cruel joke about his ex-wife. Then the doors bursting open. The 3 boys walking down the aisle. The sign. His face going white. The trophy falling. 43 million views. In less than 12 hours. The comments were brutal. This man is disgusting. He abandoned his own children. Those poor boys. I hope they're okay. I hope his company fires him. Imagine being such a terrible person you deny your own kids exist. Karma is real, and she's beautiful. Fletcher kept scrolling. He couldn't stop. It was like picking at a scab. Each comment was worse than the last. Someone had created a hashtag, deadbeat developer. It was trending. Number 2 in the United States. Right below some celebrity scandal and above a political controversy. Fletcher's phone rang. He looked at the screen. His mother, Dorothy Hayes. He considered not answering, but his mother would just keep calling. She was relentless like that. Fletcher answered. Mom. Fletcher James Hayes. Her voice was sharp. Cold. I have 3 grandsons I never knew existed. Fletcher closed his eyes. Mom, I can explain. Explain. Explain what exactly? That you've been lying to me for 9 years? That you had children and never told me? That you abandoned 3 babies? I didn't abandon them. I send money. Oh, you send money. His mother's laugh was harsh. Well, that makes it all better then. You write a check, so that makes you a father. Mom, please. I saw the video, Fletcher. Everyone saw the video. 40 million people watched you stand on a stage and mock your ex-wife, deny your own children, make a joke out of the fact that you have 3 sons who needed you and you weren't there. Fletcher didn't say anything. What could he say? Your father did the same thing to us, Dorothy continued. Her voice cracked. He was never home, always working, always too busy, and you hated him for it. You cried yourself to sleep waiting for him. You asked me why Daddy didn't love us enough to be here. Do you remember that? Fletcher remembered. He was 10 years old, lying in bed after another missed promise, another forgotten event. And now you've done the exact same thing to your own children, Dorothy said. You became the man you hated. You became your father. The words hit like a physical blow. Fletcher felt like he couldn't breathe. I raised you better than this, his mother said quietly. I thought I raised you better than this. Mom, don't call me until you fix this. Don't call me until you've apologized to those boys, until you've looked them in the eye and told them you're sorry for abandoning them. She hung up. Fletcher sat in silence holding his dead phone. His mother's words echoed in his head. You became your father. You became the man you hated. He stood up and walked to his bedroom. In the back of his closet was a box. He hadn't opened it in years. He pulled it down and carried it to his bed. Inside were old photographs, memories he'd packed away. He started going through them. A wedding photo. Fletcher and Sutton on the courthouse steps. They'd gotten married at City Hall. Quick ceremony, nothing fancy. Sutton wore a simple white dress. Fletcher wore a suit from Men's Warehouse. They both looked so young, so happy, so naive about what was coming. Another photo. Sutton pregnant. Her belly huge. She sat in their tiny apartment on a second-hand couch. She was smiling, but Fletcher could see the worry in her eyes. They were barely 23. He was just starting his business. They had no money, and they were about to have 3 babies. Fletcher remembered that day. He'd been stressed about a deal falling through, worried about money. Sutton had asked him to sit with her, to talk to the babies. He'd said he was too busy. He had to make calls. The look on her face when he'd left the room. Fletcher found another photo. The triplets as newborns. 3 tiny bundles wrapped in hospital blankets. Finn in a blue blanket. Crew in green. Reed in yellow. They were so small, so helpless. They'd needed everything from their parents. There was a photo of Fletcher holding them. All 3 at once. He looked terrified, uncomfortable, like he was holding grenades that might explode at any moment. He'd felt that way too, overwhelmed, trapped, like his life was over before it started. He'd loved Sutton. At least he thought he had. But the babies, the constant crying, the diapers, the exhaustion, the way his entire life revolved around 3 tiny humans who needed everything and gave nothing back. Fletcher had started staying late at the office, working weekends, telling himself it was for them, to provide, to build something, but really it was to escape, to be somewhere he felt competent, successful, in control. By the time the boys were 2, Fletcher was barely home. Sutton did everything, all the night feedings, all the diaper changes, all the doctor's appointments, all the comforting when they cried. She did it alone while Fletcher built his company. They fought constantly, Sutton begging him to be present, Fletcher saying he was providing, that he was working for their future, that she didn't understand the pressure he was under. The final fight was the worst. Sutton holding a screaming Reed, Finn and crew crying in the background, Sutton's face exhausted and desperate. I need you here, Fletcher. I need help. I can't do this alone. I'm working, Sutton. I'm building something. For us. For them. They don't need a business. They need a father. I'm doing the best I can. No, you're not. You're choosing work over your family. You're choosing to be exactly like your father. That's what broke him. The comparison to his father. The man who was never there. The man Fletcher swore he'd never become. Maybe I'm not cut out for this, Fletcher had said. The words just came out. He didn't plan them. Sutton stared at him. What does that mean? Maybe I'm not father material. Maybe you and the boys would be better off without me screwing everything up. So, you're leaving? I'm saying maybe we both need to be honest about what this is. What this is. This is a family, Fletcher. This is your family. But Fletcher was already mentally gone, already calculating how much easier his life would be, how much more he could accomplish, how much more successful he could become without the weight of 3 children and an exhausted wife. The divorce was quick. Fletcher's lawyer made sure of that. They split nothing because they had nothing to split. Sutton got full custody. Fletcher agreed to pay child support. In practice, he sent money when he remembered, which wasn't often. He changed his phone number. He moved to a new apartment. He threw himself into work. And within a year, It was like they never existed. Fletcher told himself it was better this way. The boys were too young to remember him. Sutton could move on, find someone better, someone who actually wanted to be a father, and Fletcher could build his empire without distractions. He stopped asking friends about Sutton, stopped checking social media, stopped thinking about 3 little boys who might wonder where their daddy went. And it worked. Fletcher's business exploded. Within 5 years, he was a millionaire. Within 10, he was worth over $200 million. He dated beautiful women. He drove expensive cars. He lived in a penthouse. He got invited to galas and charity events. He was someone. People asked sometimes if he was married, if he had kids. He said no to both. It was easier than explaining, easier than seeing the judgment in their eyes. Eventually, the lie became the truth in his mind. He didn't have children. He'd never been married. His life started when he left Detroit and came to Chicago with nothing but ambition. But now 40 million people knew the truth. Now 3 8-year-old boys had walked into a ballroom and exposed him in front of everyone who mattered. Fletcher looked at the photos spread across his bed. He picked up the one of the newborn triplets. He stared at their tiny faces. Where did 6 years go? His phone rang again. He looked at the screen. Owen. Fletcher answered. Hey, Fletcher. Jesus Christ, man. Are you okay? Been better. I've been trying to call you all night. Everyone's been trying to call you. I know. I turned my phone off. Fletcher, we have a problem. A big problem. I'm aware. The board called an emergency meeting this morning. They didn't invite you. Fletcher's stomach dropped. What? They're meeting right now. They're talking about damage control, about optics, about removing you as CEO. They can't do that. Fletcher, you're all over the news. Every major outlet is covering this. The video has 40 million views. There are think pieces about toxic masculinity and deadbeat fathers and how this reflects on the company. 3 of our biggest clients called this morning. They're threatening to pull their contracts. Fletcher stood up and started pacing. This will blow over. It always does. Next week, something else will be trending. Maybe. But right now, the board is panicking. They're talking about you taking a leave of absence, or stepping down temporarily, or what? Owen was quiet for a moment. Or removing you permanently. This is my company. I built this company from nothing. I know you did. But Fletcher, you have to understand what this looks like. You publicly humiliated your ex-wife. You denied your children exist. You made a joke about abandoning them in front of 500 people. And it's on video. Fletcher stopped pacing. He looked at his reflection in the window. He looked terrible. Rumpled tuxedo, bloodshot eyes, hair sticking up. What do I do? Fletcher asked quietly. I don't know, man. Issue a statement, apologize, actually talk to your kids. I can't just show up after 6 years. Why not? What's the alternative? Never seeing them again, letting them think you don't care. Fletcher didn't answer. Fletcher, I've known you for 10 years. You're brilliant. You're driven. You're one of the smartest people I've ever met. But this is the biggest mistake of your life. And if you don't fix it, it's going to destroy you. Owen hung up. Fletcher stood alone in his bedroom, surrounded by photographs of a family he'd abandoned, of 3 boys he didn't know, of a woman he'd failed in every possible way. His phone buzzed. A text from Patricia, his lawyer. Client meeting a sap. Sutton can sue for back child support. Based on your income, you could owe $200,000 plus. Another text came through, this one from his assistant. NBC wants a statement. So does Tribune and Sun-Times. What should I tell them? Another text from someone on his board. We need to talk about your future with the company. Fletcher turned his phone off again. He couldn't deal with this. Not right now. He walked to his living room and turned on the television. Maybe he could find something mindless to watch, something to turn his brain off. He flipped to a news channel. His own face stared back at him from the screen. The video played. Him on stage. The joke. The doors opening. The boys walking. The sign. The trophy falling. Fletcher changed the channel. Different news program. Same video. Changed again. Morning talk show. 3 women sitting around a table discussing him. I mean, who does that? One woman said. Who abandons 3 children and then jokes about it publicly? And those poor boys, another woman added. Can you imagine how much courage it took for them to walk into that room? They're 8 years old. I hope his company fires him, the third woman said. This is who we celebrate. This is success. Fletcher turned off the television. He walked to his bathroom and looked at himself in the mirror. Really looked. He saw his father staring back. The same face. The same eyes. The same man who chose work over family. Who was never there. Who broke promises. Who made his son feel worthless. You became exactly what you hated. Fletcher gripped the edge of the sink. His knuckles turned white. He wanted to punch something. Break something. Scream. But instead, he just stood there, looking at himself, at the man he'd become. For the first time in his adult life, Fletcher Hayes didn't like what he saw. 3 days passed in a blur. Fletcher didn't leave his penthouse. He ordered food delivery that sat untouched in containers on his counter. He didn't shower, didn't shave, didn't change out of his sweatpants and t-shirt. He spent hours online, reading comments about himself, watching the video on repeat, punishing himself with the truth he'd spent 6 years avoiding. The video was at 50 million views now. It had been featured on every major news outlet. Entertainment Tonight did a segment. Good Morning America had a panel discussion. Someone made it into a meme. Fletcher was officially the most hated man on the internet. His phone stayed off, except to check messages. The calls and texts had slowed down. People were giving up on reaching him. Even Owen had stopped calling after the second day. The board made their decision. Fletcher received an email. Official. Legal. They were removing him as CEO of Hayes Property Group effective immediately. Owen would take over as interim CEO. Fletcher could remain on the board in an advisory capacity, or he could sell his shares and leave entirely. Fletcher read the email 3 times. The company he'd built, the thing he'd sacrificed everything for. They'd taken it away in 3 sentences. He didn't feel angry. He didn't feel sad. He didn't feel anything. He closed his laptop and stared at the wall. On the 4th day, Fletcher's phone rang. He'd left it on by accident. He looked at the screen. Mom. His mother hadn't called since that first conversation. Fletcher hesitated, then answered. Mom, are you alive? Dorothy asked. Because you haven't called and I've been worried you did something stupid. I'm alive. Are you planning to stay that way? What kind of question is that? The kind a mother asks when her son's life implodes on national television and then he disappears for 4 days. Fletcher leaned back against his couch. I'm fine, Mom. Don't lie to me, Fletcher. Are you fine? Because from where I'm sitting, you're about as far from fine as a person can get. He didn't answer. Dorothy's voice softened. Baby, I'm not calling to yell at you. I'm calling to ask what you're going to do. About what? About your sons, about Sutton, about fixing the mess you made. I don't know. Well, you better figure it out. Because right now you have 2 choices. You can hide in that fancy apartment and feel sorry for yourself. Or you can be a man and face what you did. It's not that simple. Yes, it is. It's exactly that simple. Those boys walked into a room full of strangers and called you out. Do you know how brave that was? Do you know how much they must have wanted their father back to do something like that? Fletcher felt his throat tighten. Sutton raised those boys alone, Dorothy continued. For 6 years she did everything, and she could have told them you were dead, or that you were a terrible person. But she didn't. She told them the truth. That you were their father and you weren't ready to be a dad. How do you know that? Because I called her. Fletcher sat up straight. You what? I found her number and I called her. I apologized for my son being a coward, and I asked if I could meet my grandsons. Mom, I'm meeting them next week, Tuesday at her house, and you should be there too. I can't just show up. Why not? Because it's been 6 years. Because they hate me. Because I don't know them and they don't know me. So whose fault is that? Fletcher didn't have an answer. Those boys are your children, Dorothy said. Your blood, your responsibility. And yes, you screwed up. Yes, you were a terrible father. Yes, you abandoned them. But you can't unring that bell, Fletcher. All you can do is decide what happens next. What if they don't want to see me? Then you'll have to live with that. But at least you tried. At least you showed up. Fletcher closed his eyes. I don't know if I can do this. Yes, you can. You built a $200 million company. You negotiated deals that would make most people's heads spin. You stood on a stage in front of 500 people like it was nothing. You can face 3 8-year-olds. That's different, is it? Or are you just more scared of failing at being a father than you were of failing at business? The words hit home. That was exactly it. Fletcher had always been confident in business. It made sense to him. Rules, strategy, competition, win or lose. But fatherhood? That was terrifying. Messy, unpredictable, no rules, no strategy, just showing up and hoping you didn't screw up too badly. And Fletcher had already screwed up about as badly as a person could. Think about it, Dorothy said. But don't think too long. Those boys have already waited 6 years for their father. They shouldn't have to wait any longer. She hung up. Fletcher sat in his silent penthouse. His mother's words echoed in his head. Those boys have already waited 6 years for their father. Dad, we've been waiting for you to come home for 6 years. Fletcher stood up. He walked to his home office and opened his laptop. He pulled up a search engine and typed Sutton Hayes, Evanston, Illinois. Several results came up. He clicked through them. Found a People Finder website. Typed in her name again. There, an address. 147 Monroe Street, Evanston, apartment 3B. Fletcher stared at the address. His sons were there, 10 miles away. They'd been there the whole time, living their lives, going to school, playing with friends, growing up without him. He pulled up Google Maps and typed in the address. Street view showed a modest 2-story house that had been converted to apartments. Blue siding, white trim, a small front yard with a tree. Nothing like his building. No doorman, no marble lobby, no lake views. Just a regular house on a regular street in a regular neighborhood. Fletcher zoomed in on the image. He could see bikes on the porch, a faded welcome mat by the door, toys in the grass, evidence of children, his children. Fletcher closed the laptop. He walked to his bathroom and looked in the mirror again. He looked terrible. Beard growing and patchy, hair greasy, eyes bloodshot. If he was going to do this, if he was actually going to face his sons, he needed to pull himself together. Fletcher turned on the shower. He stood under the hot water for 20 minutes. He washed his hair, shaved his face, brushed his teeth, put on clean clothes, dark jeans, a button-down shirt, nothing too fancy. He looked in the mirror again. Better. He still looked tired, but at least he looked human. Fletcher walked back to his office. He wrote down the address on a piece of paper. 147 Monroe Street, apartment 3B. He folded the paper and put it in his pocket. But he didn't leave. Not that day. He told himself he needed to plan what to say, to think about how to approach this, to prepare. Really, he was just afraid. 2 more days passed. Fletcher looked at the address 100 times. He drove to Evanston twice and sat in his car down the block from Sutton's building. Watching, waiting, being a complete creep. He saw Sutton leave for work in scrubs. She was a nurse. He'd forgotten that. Or maybe he never knew. He couldn't remember. He saw the boys leave for school. 3 identical backpacks, 3 different colored jackets. They walked together to the corner where a school bus picked them up. Fletcher watched from his car like a stalker, like a stranger, which is exactly what he was. On the 7th day after the gala, Fletcher made a decision. He couldn't keep hiding. He couldn't keep watching from a distance. He had to actually do something. He drove to a toy store on Michigan Avenue, an expensive boutique place with wooden toys and educational games. He walked through the aisles feeling completely lost. What did 8-year-old boys like? "Can I help you, sir?" A young woman in a red apron approached. "I need gifts for 3 boys. They're 8 years old. What are their interests?" Fletcher realized he had no idea. He didn't know what his sons were interested in. Didn't know their hobbies, their favorite colors, anything. "Just show me the most popular things," he said. The woman led him through the store. She picked out 3 items: a remote control car, a building set, a science kit. Each one cost over $100. Fletcher bought all 3. He didn't care about the price. He needed something to bring, some peace offering, some physical proof that he was trying. The woman wrapped them in shiny paper and put them in a large shopping bag. Fletcher carried them to his car. He put the bag in the passenger seat. Then he sat there staring at it. What was he doing? Did he really think expensive toys would fix 6 years of absence? Did he think he could just show up with presents and everything would be okay? But he didn't have any other plan. So he started the car and drove toward Evanston. His heart pounded the entire drive. His hands were sweating on the steering wheel. He felt like he might throw up. He parked across the street from Sutton's building. It was 4:30 on a Tuesday afternoon. School would be out. The boys might be home. Fletcher sat in his car holding the shopping bag. He stared at the building. Second floor, third window from the left. That was apartment 3B, according to his research. He could see curtains, a light on inside. Someone was home. Fletcher took a deep breath. He opened his car door, got out, closed the door, locked it. He crossed the street, walked up the front steps, opened the main door. The hallway inside was narrow, worn carpet, paint that needed touching up. Mailboxes lined one wall. He found 3 B.S. Hayes. There was a buzzer. Fletcher raised his hand. It shook. He pressed the button. Nothing happened. He pressed it again. A voice crackled through the speaker. "Who is it?" Sutton's voice. Fletcher's throat closed. "It's Fletcher," he managed to say. Silence. Long silence. Fletcher thought she was going to ignore him. Tell him to leave. Call the police. Then a buzzing sound. The door lock clicked open. Fletcher pulled the door open. He climbed the stairs to the second floor, found apartment 3B. The door was closed. He stood in front of it, holding his shopping bag of expensive toys. His heart hammered against his ribs. He raised his hand. Knocked. Footsteps approached from inside. The door opened. Sutton stood there in nurse scrubs. Her hair was pulled back. She had dark circles under her eyes. She looked at Fletcher with an expression he couldn't quite read. "What do you want, Fletcher?" Fletcher stood in the hallway, holding a shopping bag full of expensive toys that suddenly felt ridiculous. Sutton's eyes were hard, waiting for an answer. "I want to see them," Fletcher said. His voice came out rough. "I want to see my sons." Sutton's jaw tightened. Her hand moved to the door like she was going to close it in his face. "Please," Fletcher added. "Please, Sutton." She stared at him for a long moment. 6 years of anger showed in her face, in the set of her shoulders, in the way her fingers gripped the door. "You have some nerve coming here," she said quietly. "I know. Do you? Do you really know?" Her voice rose slightly. "You left us. You changed your phone number. You never called. You never sent birthday cards. You acted like we didn't exist. And now you show up with what? Toys? Like that fixes anything?" Fletcher looked down at the shopping bag. She was right. This was stupid. Pathetic even. "I made a mistake," he said. "A mistake." Sutton laughed, but there was no humor in it. "A mistake is forgetting to buy milk. What you did was abandonment." Behind Sutton, Fletcher heard small footsteps, young voices. The boys were home. "Mom, who is it?" A child's voice called from inside the apartment. Sutton turned her head. "Go to your room, please." "But—" "Now, Finn." Fletcher heard the footsteps retreat. Sutton turned back to him. Her expression had changed slightly. Not softer exactly, but something shifted. "They're here," she said. "Your sons are here, and you have a choice right now. You can leave and never come back. Or you can come inside and actually face what you did. But if you come in, you're all in. No running away, no disappearing. Are we clear?" Fletcher nodded. "We're clear." Sutton stepped aside. Fletcher walked into the apartment. The space was tiny. Fletcher could see the entire layout from the doorway. A small living room with a worn couch and a television. A kitchen barely big enough for 2 people. A hallway that must lead to bedrooms and a bathroom. But the apartment was clean. Very clean. Organized. Loved. Drawings covered the refrigerator. Crayon pictures of houses and animals and stick figure families. A basket near the couch held toys. Cars. Action figures. Building blocks. Books were stacked on a small shelf. Everything had its place. Fletcher noticed something else. Photos. Everywhere. The walls were covered with framed pictures. The boys at different ages. Birthday parties. School pictures. Halloween costumes. A whole childhood documented in images. Fletcher wasn't in any of them. "Boys," Sutton called down the hallway. "Come here, please." Fletcher's heart started racing. This was it. He was about to see them. Really see them. Up close. Not from a stage. Not from a car parked down the street. Face to face. 3 boys appeared in the hallway. They stood close together. Protective. United. Fletcher recognized them from the gala, but seeing them now, in their home, in regular clothes instead of suits, it was different, more real. The tallest one had sandy blonde hair and serious blue eyes. Finn. He looked at Fletcher with suspicion, with barely contained anger. The middle one had darker hair and a quieter face. Crew. He watched Fletcher carefully, studying him, taking in every detail. The smallest one had lighter hair and big green eyes. Reed. He held a stuffed dinosaur against his chest. His expression was more open than his brother's. Curious, hopeful even. Boys, Sutton said gently, this is your father. He's going to visit for a little while. None of the boys spoke. They just stared. Fletcher realized he was supposed to say something, do something, but his mind was completely blank. What did you say to 3 children you abandoned? Hi, he finally managed. His voice sounded strange, too loud in the small apartment. The boys didn't respond. I brought you something. Fletcher held up the shopping bag. Immediately, he felt like an idiot, like he was trying to buy their affection, which is exactly what he was doing. Reed's eyes went to the bag. Crew's expression didn't change. Finn crossed his arms. Sutton gestured to the couch. Sit down, Fletcher. Fletcher sat on the edge of the couch. The boys stayed standing across the room near the kitchen, putting as much distance between themselves and him as possible in the tiny space. Sutton stood in the kitchen doorway. Her arms were crossed. She was watching, judging, ready to throw him out if he said the wrong thing. I know this is strange, Fletcher said. He was talking to the boys but looking at his hands. I know you probably have questions, or maybe you're angry. You have every right to be angry. Still no response from the 3 boys. Fletcher forced himself to look up, to meet their eyes. Finn stared back at him with open hostility. Crew's face was unreadable. Reed clutched his dinosaur tighter. I wanted to say I'm sorry, Fletcher continued, for not being here, for not being your dad, for, his voice caught, for everything. Why? Finn asked. His voice was sharp, older than 8 years old should sound. Why what? Why weren't you here? Where were you? Fletcher glanced at Sutton. She nodded slightly. Answer the question. Tell the truth. I was working, Fletcher said, building my company. I thought that was more important. I was wrong. You thought work was more important than us. Finn's eyes narrowed. Fletcher wanted to explain, to make excuses, to talk about pressure and responsibility and providing for the future. But looking at Finn's face, he knew none of that mattered. Yes, Fletcher said simply. I thought work was more important. I was wrong. At the gala, you said we don't exist, Crew said quietly. It was the first time he'd spoken. You told everyone Mom gave you nothing, not even children. But we're your children. Each word was like a knife. Fletcher felt them all. The shame was overwhelming. I know. I said something terrible. I was trying to be funny. I was trying to... Fletcher stopped, shook his head. There's no excuse. What I said was cruel and wrong, and I'm sorry. Sorry doesn't change anything, Finn said. I know, Fletcher said. You're right. It doesn't... The boys were quiet. Reed shifted his weight from foot to foot. His eyes kept darting to the shopping bag. You can open the presents if you want, Fletcher said. The boys looked at their mother. Sutton nodded. Reed moved first. He crossed the small living room and reached into the bag. He pulled out the wrapped gift, brought it back to his brothers. They gathered around. Finn unwrapped it carefully. Inside was the remote control car, shiny red and black, expensive, high-tech. Crew opened his gift. The building set. Hundreds of pieces. Reed opened the last one. The science kit. The boys looked at the toys. They touched them gently, but they didn't smile, didn't thank him. They just stared. Do you like them? Fletcher asked. He heard the desperation in his own voice. Finn looked up. His blue eyes met Fletcher's identical blue eyes. We didn't need toys, Finn said. His voice was calm but firm, strong. We needed a dad. The The words hit Fletcher like a physical blow. He couldn't breathe, couldn't think. Finn was 8 years old, and he'd just delivered the most devastating truth Fletcher had ever heard. "You're right," Fletcher whispered. "You're absolutely right." Fletcher stood up from the couch. He couldn't stay sitting. He moved closer to the boys. Not too close. He didn't want to scare them, but closer, at their level. "Can I ask you something?" Fletcher said. "What are your names?" Finn's eyebrows went up. "What?" "Your names. I know them. Finn, Crew, Reed. But I don't know which of you is which." The boys looked at each other, then back at Fletcher. Confusion on their faces. "You don't know which one is me?" Finn asked. Fletcher shook his head. "I haven't seen you since you were 2 years old. I don't know anything about you, and I want to. If you'll let me." Finn stared at him for a long moment. Then he pointed to himself. "I'm Finn." He pointed to his brother with darker hair. "That's Crew." He pointed to the smallest one. "That's Reed." "Thank you," Fletcher said. "How can you not know your own kids?" Finn asked. Not mean, just genuinely confused. "Because I wasn't here, because I made terrible choices, because I was a coward." Sutton cleared her throat. All heads turned to her. "Fletcher, can I talk to you in the kitchen?" she asked. Fletcher followed her into the tiny kitchen. She kept her voice low so the boys wouldn't hear. "You can stay for dinner," she said. "But then you need to leave. This is too much for them all at once." "Okay, thank you. I'm not doing this for you. I'm doing it for them. They deserve to know their father, even if their father doesn't deserve them." Fletcher nodded. The words stung, but they were true. "And Fletcher?" Sutton's voice dropped even lower. "If you do this, if you start coming around, you don't get to disappear again. You don't get to show up for a week and then vanish. These boys have been abandoned once. I won't let it happen again. Are we absolutely clear?" "We're clear." "I mean it. You're either all in or you stay away. There's no middle ground." "I understand." Sutton studied his face, looking for something. Sincerity, maybe. Or commitment. After a moment she nodded. "I ordered pizza. It should be here in 20 minutes. She walked back to the living room. "Boys, Fletcher's staying for dinner. Go wash your hands." The boys disappeared down the hallway. Fletcher heard water running. Young voices talking in hushed tones. Sutton started setting the table. Fletcher stood awkwardly in the kitchen. "Can I help?" he asked. "You can get plates from that cabinet." She pointed. Fletcher opened the cabinet. He pulled out 4 plates. They were mismatched, different colors and patterns. He brought them to the small kitchen table. There were only 4 chairs. The table was meant for 4 people maximum. "Where do I sit?" Fletcher asked. "Take my chair. I'll stand." "No, I can stand." "Fletcher, just sit down." He sat. The boys came back from washing their hands. They sat at the table. One chair was empty, the chair that should have been Fletcher's all along. The doorbell rang. Sutton answered it. Paid the delivery person. Brought 2 pizza boxes to the table. She opened them. 1 cheese, 1 pepperoni. The boys immediately grabbed slices. They were hungry, really hungry. Fletcher watched them eat. The way Reed picked off the pepperoni and ate it first. The way Crew folded his slice in half. The way Finn ate around the crust and saved it for last. Small details he'd missed. Small pieces of their lives he knew nothing about. "Aren't you eating?" Sutton asked. She was standing near the counter. Fletcher took a slice of cheese pizza. He didn't taste it. His stomach was in knots. "How's school?" Fletcher asked. The question sounded stupid the moment it left his mouth. Too generic, too distant. "Fine," Finn said without looking up. "What grade are you in?" "3rd, Crew answered. "Do you like it, school?" Reed shrugged. The universal kid response for "I don't want to talk to you." Fletcher tried again. "Do you have friends? Kids you hang out with?" "Yeah," Finn said, still not making eye contact. This was excruciating. Fletcher had negotiated $1 million deals. He'd given presentations to hundreds of people, but he couldn't hold a conversation with 3 8-year-olds. Sutton was watching from the kitchen, not helping, making him figure it out on his own. They ate in painful silence. The only sounds were chewing and the occasional scrape of plates. Finally, Reed spoke up. "Why did you say we don't exist?" Fletcher put down his pizza. Here it was. The question he'd been dreading. Because I was ashamed, he said. Of us? Reed's eyes were wide. Hurt. No. Of myself. I left you when you were very small. I wasn't a good father. I wasn't there for birthdays or when you were sick or for anything important. And instead of admitting I made a huge mistake, I pretended it never happened. I pretended you didn't exist because that was easier than admitting I failed. The boys absorbed this. Finn's jaw was tight. Crew picked at his pizza crust. Reed's eyes filled with tears. That was wrong, Fletcher continued. His own eyes were stinging. Probably the worst thing I've ever done. And I'm so sorry. A tear rolled down Reed's cheek. He wiped it with the back of his hand. Fletcher wanted to reach out, to comfort him, but he didn't have that right. He was a stranger to this child, a stranger who'd made him cry. Finn stood up abruptly. His chair scraped against the floor. May I be excused? He asked Sutton. She nodded. Of course. Finn walked down the hallway. A door closed, not slammed, but firmly closed. Crew and Reed finished their pizza in silence. Then they asked to be excused too. Sutton sent them to do homework. Fletcher and Sutton were alone in the kitchen. That went well, Fletcher said sarcastically. What did you expect? That they'd run into your arms? That everything would be fine? No, I don't know. I didn't know what to expect. Sutton started clearing plates. Fletcher stood to help, but she waved him off. Finn is the angriest, she said. He remembers you leaving. The other two were younger. It's more abstract for them. But Finn remembers. What does he remember? He remembers you being here, then not being here. He asked about you for months. Where's Daddy? When's Daddy coming home? I ran out of answers eventually. I had to tell him the truth. That you weren't coming back. Fletcher felt like he'd been punched in the stomach. God, Sutton, I'm so sorry. Don't apologize to me. Apologize to them. Show them you're sorry by actually being here. By doing the work. She paused. Turned to face him. Can I ask you something? Yeah. Why now? Why are you here now? Because I saw the video. Everyone saw the video. That's not what I'm asking. You've known where we live for 6 years. Your lawyers have the address for the child support checks you barely send. Why are you here now? Fletcher thought about lying, about saying something noble. But Sutton deserved the truth. Because I'm ashamed. Because my whole life fell apart in 30 seconds. Because my company fired me. My girlfriend left me. My mother told me I became the man I hated. And I finally realized I threw away everything that actually mattered for things that don't matter at all. Sutton nodded slowly. At least you're honest. Is that enough? Honesty? I don't know, Fletcher. Is it? Before he could answer, Sutton's hand trembled. She'd been holding a plate, and it shook. She put it down quickly, steadied her hand with the other one. Fletcher noticed. Are you okay? I'm fine. Your hand was shaking. Sutton looked at him. Really looked at him. Something crossed her face. A decision being made. I need to tell you something, she said quietly. But not here. Not where the boys can hear. Okay. There's a coffee shop 2 blocks away. Meet me there tomorrow morning, 9 a.m. We need to talk. Fletcher felt dread settle in his stomach. Is something wrong? Tomorrow. 9 a.m. Sutton walked to the door and opened it. You should go now. Fletcher stood up. He walked to the door. Stopped. Can I come back? He asked. Sutton looked past him toward the hallway, where her sons were doing homework. When she looked back at Fletcher, her expression had changed. Not warm, but not hostile either. Same time next week, Tuesday at 6. Bring dinner. Nothing fancy. Lou Malnati's pizza. The boys like it. Okay. Thank you. Don't thank me. Just show up. If you say you'll be here, be here. I will. Fletcher left the apartment, walked down the stairs, got in his car. He sat there for a moment staring at the building. He'd just had dinner with his sons. His actual sons. It had been awkward and painful and terrible. And he wanted to do it again. Wanted another chance. Wanted to know them. Fletcher drove home thinking about 3 boys who didn't know him. Who had every reason to hate him. Who'd given him 15 minutes of their time and nothing more. It was more than he deserved. Fletcher arrived at the coffee shop at 8:55 the next morning. He ordered a black coffee and sat at a corner table. His leg bounced nervously. His mind raced through possibilities of what Sutton needed to tell him. Was she moving away? Taking the boys somewhere he couldn't follow? Was she getting remarried? Replacing him with someone better? Was she suing him? Taking him to court for all the missed child support? At 9:03, Sutton walked through the door. She wore jeans and a sweater. Her hair was down. She looked younger like this. Softer. More like the woman he'd married a lifetime ago. She got a coffee and sat across from Fletcher. Neither of them spoke for a moment. "Thanks for coming," Sutton finally said. "You said we needed to talk." "We do." She wrapped both hands around her coffee cup. Fletcher noticed again the slight tremor in her fingers. "Are you sick?" Fletcher asked directly. Sutton looked surprised. Then she nodded. "How did you notice?" "Your hands. They shake." She looked down at her trembling fingers. "I was diagnosed 6 months ago. Early onset Parkinson's disease." Fletcher's blood ran cold. "What?" "It's mild now. The tremors are the main symptom, but it's progressive. Eventually it'll affect my mobility, my ability to work, my ability to take care of the boys on my own. Sutton, Let me finish." Her voice was firm. "The doctors say I have years, maybe decades if we're lucky. But I need to know my boys will be okay, that they'll have someone. That's why I did it." "Did what?" "The gala, the confrontation." "I didn't do it for revenge, Fletcher. I did it because you needed to see them. They needed to see you. Before it's too late. Before I can't." Her voice broke. Fletcher reached across the table without thinking. He took her trembling hand in his. "Before you can't what?" "Before I can't take care of them anymore. Before I can't be their mom the way they need me to be." Tears ran down her face. "I'm so scared, Fletcher. I'm so scared of leaving them. And I needed to know they'd have their father, their real father, not just child support checks." "You..." Fletcher held her hand, felt the tremor running through it. This woman had raised 3 boys alone, worked double shifts as a nurse to pay rent and buy groceries, been to every parent-teacher conference, every soccer game, every doctor's appointment, and now she was sick. And she'd used her last opportunity for revenge to instead give him a chance at redemption. "How bad is it?" Fletcher asked quietly. "Right now, manageable. I take medication, I do physical therapy, but eventually I'll need help. The boys will need help. They'll need you. What can I do?" "Show up. Actually show up. Not just next Tuesday, every Thursday, every Saturday, whatever we agree to. You show up. You be their father. You prove to me and to them that you're here to stay." "I will. I promise." "Don't promise. Just do it." Sutton pulled her hand back, wiped her eyes. "I'm going to ask my lawyer to draft a custody agreement. Official shared custody. Not just visits, real time with them. Weekends. Holidays. I want them to have a room at your house. A real room that's theirs. I want you to be part of their lives." "Actually part of it." Fletcher nodded. "Yes. Anything. Whatever you want." "I don't want anything, Fletcher. I want what's best for our sons. Can you give them that?" "I'm going to try." "Trying isn't enough. You have to actually do it." They sat in silence. Sutton composed herself. Fletcher processed everything she'd just told him. Parkinson's disease. Progressive. She was sick, and she'd been dealing with it alone. "Does your family know?" Fletcher asked. "Your sister?" "Maria knows. She helps when she can. But she has her own kids, her own life." "What about the boys? Do they know you're sick?" "Not yet. They're too young to understand. But eventually I'll have to tell them." Sutton looked at Fletcher. "And when I do, I need to be able to tell them their father will be there for them." "Can I tell them that?" "Yes." "You're sure? Because if you start this and then disappear again, it'll destroy them. It'll be worse than if you'd never come back at all." "I'm not going anywhere, I promise." "Then prove it. Next Tuesday, 6 p.m., with pizza." Fletcher showed up the next Tuesday at 5:55 p.m. He'd stopped at Lou Malnati's like Sutton instructed. He carried 2 large pizza boxes up the stairs to apartment 3B. He knocked on the door. Footsteps. The door opened. Finn stood there. He looked at Fletcher, looked at the pizza boxes, didn't say anything. "Hi, Finn," Fletcher said. "Is your mom home?" "Mom," Finn yelled over his shoulder. Then he walked away. Left the door open. That was progress, maybe. Sutton appeared. "You came." "I said I would. Come in." Fletcher entered. The apartment looked the same as last week. The boys were in the living room. Reed was playing with toy cars on the floor. Crew was reading a book on the couch. Finn had disappeared into another room. "Boys, dinner's here," Sutton called. They gathered at the small kitchen table. Same routine as last week. Finn eventually emerged from his room. They all sat, started eating. "How was school?" Fletcher asked. "Fine," multiple voices answered. Fletcher tried a different question. "Did anything interesting happen this week?" Silence. The boys focused on their pizza. This was going to be harder than he thought. "I had an interesting week," Fletcher said. Nobody asked, but he continued anyway. "I moved out of my apartment." That got Crew's attention. "Why?" "Because I lived in downtown Chicago. That's pretty far from here. I wanted to be closer to you guys." "Where did you move?" Sutton asked. "Evanston. About 10 blocks from here, actually." The boys looked at each other, then at their mom. "You moved here?" Reed asked. "To our neighborhood?" "Yeah. I thought maybe if I lived closer, we could see each other more, if that's okay with you guys." Finn's jaw tightened. "Why do you care now?" "Finn," Sutton said quietly. "No, it's okay," Fletcher said. "That's a fair question." He looked at Finn directly. "I care because I wasted 6 years. 6 years I can never get back. I can't change that. But I can change what happens from now on. If you'll let me." "What if we don't let you?" Finn asked. "Then I'll have to live with that. But I hope you do. I hope you give me a chance to be your dad." "You're not our dad," Finn said. His voice was sharp. "Dads show up. Dads are there. You're just some guy who lives in Evanston now." The words stung. But Fletcher didn't argue. Finn was right. "You're right. I haven't earned that title yet. But I'd like to try." Finn stared at him for a long moment. Then he went back to eating his pizza. They finished dinner in awkward silence. Afterward, Fletcher helped Sutton clean up. The boys went to do homework. "He's really angry," Fletcher said quietly. "I told you he would be. How do I get through to him?" "Time, consistency. Show up enough times and maybe he'll start to believe you're actually staying." Fletcher came back the next Tuesday, and the Thursday after that, and the Saturday morning 2 days later. Each visit was similar. Awkward conversations, long silences, Finn's barely concealed hostility, Crew's cautious observation, Reed's tentative curiosity. But Fletcher kept showing up. Week 2. Week 3. Week 4. He learned small things. Finn played soccer. Crew liked to read mystery books. Reed was obsessed with dinosaurs and had named his stuffed dinosaur Rex. Fletcher went to Finn's soccer practice on a Saturday morning. He sat on the grass with other parents and watched. Finn saw him there. His expression flickered. Surprise, maybe. But he didn't wave. Just kept playing. After practice, Finn walked over slowly. "You came to my practice," he said. "You said you played soccer. I wanted to see." "Why?" "Because I'm interested in your life." Finn considered this. "We have a game next Saturday, at 10 a.m. I'll be there." Finn nodded, started to walk away, then stopped. "Thanks for coming today." It was small, the smallest acknowledgement, but it felt like a victory. Fletcher went to the game the next Saturday. He sat in the bleachers with other parents. Finn's team wore blue jerseys. Finn played defense. The game was close, tied 2-2 going into the final minutes. The other team had the ball. They drove toward Finn's goal. Finn intercepted, kicked the ball away. His team recovered it. Fletcher found himself standing, cheering. "Good job, Finn." Other parents looked at him. Finn glanced toward the bleachers, saw Fletcher. Something crossed his face. Then he refocused on the game. Final whistle. The game ended in a tie. The boys shook hands with the other team. Parents started gathering their kids. Finn jogged over to where Fletcher stood. "You stayed the whole game," Finn said. He was breathing hard. His face was flushed from exertion. "Of course I did. You played great." "We tied." "You played great anyway. That steal in the last 2 minutes? That was incredible." Finn smiled. Just a little. Just for a second. But it was there. 2 months in, Fletcher established a routine. Tuesday dinners, Thursday afternoons, Saturday mornings. He showed up every single time. He learned that Crew was in chess club at school. Fletcher knew nothing about chess. So, he watched YouTube videos, learned the basics, went to Crew's chess club meeting. Crew saw him sitting in the back of the classroom. His eyes went wide. After the meeting, Crew approached. "You came to chess club. You said you liked chess. I wanted to understand why. Do you play?" "Not really. But maybe you could teach me sometime." Crew's face lit up. "Really? Really?" The next Thursday, Crew brought out a chessboard. He set up the pieces and started teaching Fletcher. Fletcher was terrible. He lost in 12 moves. "You're really bad at this," Crew said. But he was smiling. "I know, but I'm learning from the best, right?" Crew nodded seriously. "I'll teach you until you're good." They played chess every Thursday after that. Fletcher never won, but he didn't care. Crew talked more during those chess games than any other time. Explained strategy, told stories about tournaments, opened up. Reed was harder to reach. He was quieter than his brothers, more reserved. He watched Fletcher with those big green eyes, but didn't say much. One Thursday evening, there was a massive thunderstorm. Rain pounded against the windows. Thunder boomed so loud it shook the apartment. Lightning flashed. Fletcher heard crying from the boys' bedroom. Sutton rushed down the hallway. Fletcher followed. Reed was sitting on his bed sobbing. He clutched Rex the dinosaur to his chest. "Hey, buddy," Sutton said softly. "It's just a storm." "It's so loud," Reed cried. "I know. But you're safe inside." Thunder boomed again. Reed jumped, cried harder. Fletcher found himself kneeling beside Reed's bed. "Reed, can I sit with you?" Reed looked at him with tear-filled eyes. He nodded. Fletcher sat on the edge of the bed. "Storms are scary, huh?" "Really scary," Reed whispered. "I used to be scared of storms when I was your age." "You did?" "Yeah. The thunder was so loud. I thought the sky was falling or something." Reed wiped his nose. "What did you do?" "My mom would sit with me, and she'd tell me that thunder is just the sky making noise. It sounds scary, but it can't hurt us. We're safe inside." Another boom of thunder. Reed flinched, but didn't cry. "Can you stay?" Reed asked quietly. "Until the storm is over?" Fletcher looked at Sutton. She nodded. "Of course I can stay." Fletcher sat with Reed for 40 minutes while the storm raged outside. He didn't say much, just sat there, a steady presence. Reed eventually calmed down. His breathing evened out. His grip on Rex loosened. By the time the storm passed, Reed was almost asleep. His head rested against Fletcher's arm. Fletcher carefully laid him down, pulled the blanket up. Reed's eyes fluttered open. "Thanks for staying," Reed whispered. "Anytime, buddy, anytime." Fletcher left the room. Sutton was waiting in the hallway. There were tears in her eyes. "He asked for you," she said. "He wanted you to stay. Is that okay?" "It's more than okay. It's what I hoped would happen." 3 months after Fletcher started showing up, Sutton presented him with custody papers, official legal documents drafted by her attorney. "Shared custody," she explained. "Alternating weeks. You get them every other week, plus alternating holidays. School breaks will split." Fletcher read through the papers. This was real, legal, binding. He'd be responsible for 3 8-year-old boys. Not just Tuesday dinners, everything. School mornings, bedtimes, homework, meals, the whole thing. "Are you sure?" he asked Sutton. "Are you sure you trust me with this?" "I'm not sure about anything, but you've shown up for 3 months. You've been consistent. The boys are starting to relax around you, especially Reed. Even Finn is warming up, slowly. What if I mess up?" "You will mess up. Every parent messes up, but you'll keep showing up anyway, right?" "Right." Fletcher signed the papers, made it official. His first week with the boys was complete chaos. He picked them up from school on Monday, brought them to his new house in Evanston, showed them their room. He'd set it up over the past month. 3 twin beds, 3 dressers, posters they'd picked out, books on shelves, their own space. "This is your room," Fletcher said. "Whenever you're here, this is yours." The boys walked through, slowly, taking it in. Finn was quiet. Crew smiled. Reed immediately jumped on the bed he wanted. "Can I really sleep here?" Reed asked. "This is your bed, your room." Dinner that first night was a disaster. Fletcher burned the chicken. The vegetables were overcooked. The boys ate cereal instead. Homework was a nightmare. Finn had a math worksheet Fletcher barely understood. Crew needed help with a book report. Reed had spelling words to practice. Fletcher felt like he was drowning. How did Sutton do this alone for 6 years? Bedtime was even worse. The boys needed showers, teeth brushed, pajamas, stories read. Fletcher had no routine, no system. Everything took twice as long as it should. By the time all 3 boys were in bed, Fletcher was exhausted. He collapsed on his couch and called Sutton. "How did it go?" she asked. He could hear the smile in her voice. "I burned dinner. I barely understand 3rd grade math. Bedtime took 2 hours. I have no idea what I'm doing. Welcome to parenting. How did you do this alone? You just do. You figure it out. It gets easier. I promise." It did get easier. Slowly, Fletcher established routines, learned what the boys liked for breakfast, figured out the homework rhythm, found a bedtime routine that worked. Week 2 was better than week 1. Week 4 was better than week 2. Fletcher learned to pack lunches, to check folders for school notes, to remember soccer practice and chess club and karate lessons. He made mistakes constantly, forgot to sign permission slips, showed up late to pick up, made spaghetti 3 nights in a row because it was easy. But he was there. Every single day of his week, he was there. The boys started to relax, started to trust that he wasn't going to disappear, started to call him Dad more often than Fletcher. 4 months after their first dinner, Crew published a short story in the school literary magazine. It was a mystery about a missing cat. Fletcher read it 3 times. It was actually good. "Crew, this is incredible," Fletcher said. Really? You're a talented writer." Crew's face lit up. "You think so?" "I know so." Fletcher made 20 copies of the magazine. He sent them to family members, to Owen, to anyone who would appreciate it. He framed one and hung it in Crew's room. "You're making a big deal out of it," Crew said. But he was smiling. That's what dads do. They make a big deal out of their kids' accomplishments. 5 months in, Reed earned his next belt in karate. Fletcher sat in the dojo with other parents, watched Reed perform his forms, break boards with his tiny hands, earn the new belt. The instructor tied it around Reed's waist. Reed beamed. He looked into the audience, found Fletcher, waved. Fletcher waved back. His throat was tight. After the ceremony, Reed ran over. Did you see me break the boards? I saw everything. You were amazing." Reed threw his arms around Fletcher's waist, hugged him tight. "I'm glad you came, Dad." There it was again. Dad. It never got old. 6 months after the gala, Finn's team made it to the soccer championship. Fletcher sat in the front row of the bleachers. The game went into overtime. With 2 minutes left, Finn stole the ball, drove it up the field, scored the winning goal. The crowd erupted. Finn's teammates mobbed him. When he finally extracted himself, he looked up at the bleachers. His eyes found Fletcher. Fletcher was standing, cheering, hands cupped around his mouth, yelling louder than anyone. Finn smiled, a real, genuine, full smile. Then he pointed at Fletcher. Something broke open in Fletcher's chest, a dam releasing, years of regret and shame washing away, replaced with something else. Pride, love, purpose. After the game, Finn ran to Fletcher. "Did you see the goal?" Finn asked breathlessly. "I saw it. That was incredible." Finn hesitated. Then he threw his arms around Fletcher, hugged him tight. Fletcher wrapped his arms around his son, held on, memorized the moment. The smell of grass and sweat, the feeling of Finn's heart beating against his chest, the sound of his breathing. "I'm proud of you," Fletcher whispered. "Thanks, Dad," Finn said into Fletcher's shirt. "Dad." Finn called him Dad. Fletcher closed his eyes, held his son, and felt, for the first time in his entire life, like he was exactly where he was supposed to be. 1 year after the gala, Fletcher received an invitation in the mail. The Chicago Real Estate Awards, the same gala, the same hotel. Hayes Property Group was nominated for 3 awards under Owen's leadership. Fletcher threw the invitation in the trash. 2 days later, Owen called. "Did you get the invitation?" Owen asked. "Yeah, I'm not going." Fletcher, you should go. Show your face. Remind people you're still here. I don't care about reminding people I'm here. I care about being here for my kids. The gala is on a Saturday night. You could get a sitter. Fletcher thought about it. The Peninsula Hotel. The ballroom where everything fell apart. The last place he wanted to be. But then he thought about something else. Walking in with his sons. Showing everyone the boys he'd denied. Showing everyone how much had changed. If I go, Fletcher said slowly, I'm bringing my kids. And Sutton. All of us or none of us. Are you sure that's a good idea? I'm sure that's the only idea. Fletcher talked to Sutton that night. Told her about the invitation. You want to go back there? She asked. After what happened last year? I want to show them, everyone who saw that video. I want to show them my sons. I want to show them I'm their father now. Actually, their father. Sutton considered this. What do the boys think? They asked Finn, Crew, and Reed at dinner. Explained the situation. The gala. The fancy hotel. Getting dressed up. Is it the same place from the video? Finn asked. Yes. The place where you said we don't exist. Yes. Finn thought about it. Will people know who we are? Probably. Good. Let them see we're real. Fletcher felt a surge of pride. Finn was 8 years old, and he had more courage than most adults Fletcher knew. The night of the gala arrived. Fletcher picked up Sutton and the boys from their apartment. He'd rented a car service. Nothing too fancy, just nice. The boys wore the same suits from a year ago. Navy blue, white shirts, red ties. They'd grown. The sleeves were a bit short, but they insisted on wearing them. These are our battle suits, Crew said seriously. Sutton wore a simple blue dress. She looked beautiful. The tremor in her hands was more noticeable now, but she'd learned to manage it. They arrived at the Peninsula Hotel. The same circular driveway, the same red carpet, the same photographers. Fletcher stepped out first. Then he helped the boys out. Then Sutton. Cameras started flashing immediately. Reporters rushed over. Mr. Hayes, is this your family? Fletcher put his hand on Finn's shoulder. Yes. These are my sons. Finn, Crew, and Reed. Is this a statement about last year? This is my family, Fletcher said clearly. That's the only statement I need to make. They walked down the red carpet together. The boys stayed close to Fletcher. Finn on his left, Crew on his right, Reed holding his hand, Sutton beside them. Inside the ballroom, heads turned. People whispered. Fletcher felt eyes on them from every direction. But he didn't care. His sons were with him. That was all that mattered. They found their table, sat down. The boys looked around with wide eyes, taking in the chandeliers, the fancy decorations, the expensive dresses. This place is huge, Reed whispered. It is, Fletcher agreed. Hayes Property Group won 2 awards that night. Owen accepted both, gave gracious speeches, thanked Fletcher for building the foundation. Fletcher clapped from his seat. He felt no jealousy, no regret. Owen was doing a great job, better than Fletcher probably would have. At the end of the night, the MC made an announcement. Before we close, we have something special. Fletcher Hayes, could you come to the stage? Fletcher's stomach dropped. He looked at Owen across the room. Owen shrugged. He looked as surprised as Fletcher felt. Fletcher stood, walked to the stage. The MC handed him a microphone. Last year, the MC said, Fletcher Hayes stood on the stage and said some things he regrets. This year, we invited him back for a different reason, to show that people can change, that redemption is possible. Fletcher, the floor is yours. Fletcher looked out at the crowd. 500 people, just like last year, but everything was different now. His eyes found his table. Finn, Crew, Reed, Sutton, his family. He knew what he had to do. Last year, Fletcher began, I stood on this stage and said terrible things. I mocked my ex-wife. I denied my children. I acted like success was the only thing that mattered. The room was completely silent. I was wrong about everything. Fletcher's voice cracked. He paused, took a breath. My 3 sons walked into this ballroom and held up a sign. Dad, we've been waiting for you to come home for 6 years. It was the most humiliating moment of my life. And it was also the moment that saved my life. Fletcher looked directly at the boys. I spent the last year learning how to be a dad. I'm still not great at it. I burn breakfast. I forget permission slips. I barely understand 3rd grade math. A few people laughed. Gentle, sympathetic. But I show up every Tuesday, every Thursday, every Saturday, every soccer game, every chess club meeting, every karate test. Every single day I get with them, I show up. Fletcher's eyes were wet. He didn't try to hide it. Finn, Crew, Reed, he said directly to them. I love you. Being your father is the greatest honor of my life, and I'm sorry it took me so long to figure that out. The ballroom erupted in applause, but Fletcher didn't hear it. He only saw 3 boys in the front row. Finn was crying. Crew was smiling. Reed was bouncing in his seat. Fletcher left the stage, walked straight to them. All 3 boys crashed into him. A group hug. He held them tight. I love you guys, he said into their hair. We love you too, Dad, they said back. Sutton watched with tears streaming down her face. The whole ballroom watched. Cameras flashed. People applauded. Fletcher didn't care about any of it. He just held his sons and felt complete. That night, Fletcher brought everyone back to his house. The boys changed into pajamas. They had hot chocolate in the living room. Reed fell asleep on the couch. Crew dozed off with his head on Fletcher's shoulder. Finn stayed awake, but barely. Sutton smiled at the scene. You did good tonight. I meant every word. I know. She stood up carefully. The tremor in her hand was worse when she was tired. I should go home. Stay, Fletcher said. It's late. You're exhausted. The guest room is made up. Sutton hesitated. Fletcher, not like that. I just mean your family. This is your home too if you want it to be. Sutton looked at the boys sleeping peacefully. At the house Fletcher had made for them. At the life he'd built. Okay, she said. Just for tonight. But that one night turned into more. Not every night, but enough. Sutton and Fletcher never got back together romantically. They didn't try to rebuild what they'd lost, but they built something new, something better. A partnership based on raising 3 incredible boys and making sure those boys had everything they needed. Fletcher's mother, Dorothy, became a regular presence. She met her grandsons finally, baked cookies with them, told embarrassing stories about Fletcher as a child. The boys adored her. 2 years after the gala, Crew published another short story. Then another. He started a blog, talked about being a writer when he grew up. Fletcher bought him a laptop for his 10th birthday. Crew's eyes went huge. This is for me? He asked. For your writing. Every writer needs good tools. Crew threw his arms around Fletcher. Thank you, Dad. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Reed earned his black belt in karate. Fletcher sat in the front row of the ceremony, cheered louder than anyone, took 100 photos, framed the certificate, and hung it in Reed's room. Dad, you're embarrassing, Reed said, but he was grinning. That's my job. Dads are supposed to embarrass their kids. Finn made the all-star soccer team. Fletcher became an assistant coach. He didn't know much about soccer strategy, but he knew how to encourage kids, how to make them believe in themselves. Coach Hayes. Kids on the team would yell, "Did you see my pass?" I saw it. That was perfect. Finn watched his father interact with his teammates. After practice one day, he walked over. Thanks for coaching, Finn said. Thanks for letting me be part of this. You're good at it. The kids like you. Your opinion is the only one that matters to me. Do you like having me here? Finn looked at Fletcher, really looked at him. Yeah, Dad, I do. 3 years after the gala, Fletcher sat in his backyard on a Saturday morning. The boys were playing soccer. Finn, Crew, and Reed against some neighborhood kids. Sutton sat in a lawn chair beside Fletcher. Dorothy was there too. Sutton's sister Maria and her kids had joined. Everyone was laughing, shouting, having fun. Fletcher watched Finn make a goal, watched Crew strategize, watched Reed trip over the ball and laugh at himself. These were his sons, these 3 incredible humans, and he got to be their father. What are you thinking about? Sutton asked. How different my life is from 3 years ago. Better, or Fletcher didn't even have to think about it. Better, so much better. Sutton smiled. Her hand trembled slightly as she took a sip of water. The Parkinson's was progressing slowly, but she was managing, and she wasn't alone anymore. Fletcher helped. Dorothy helped. Maria helped. They were all in it together. Dad, Reed called from the yard. Come play with us. Fletcher stood up, jogged over to the game. The boys cheered. He was terrible at soccer. Everyone knew it, but he played anyway. Finn passed him the ball. Fletcher tried to kick it. Missed completely. Fell on his butt in the grass. All three boys dissolved into laughter. Fletcher laughed too. This was success. This was winning. Not trophies or awards or magazine covers. This. Grass stains and laughter and 3 sons who wanted him around. That evening, after everyone had gone home, Fletcher tucked Reed into bed. "Dad?" Reed asked sleepily. "Yeah, buddy. Are you happy you came back?" Fletcher's throat tightened. "Coming back to you guys is the best thing I ever did. Even though you lost your company and your fancy apartment and everyone was mean to you? Even then, especially then, because I got something way better." "What?" "I got you and your brothers and a life that actually matters." Reed smiled. "Good, because we like having you here. I like being here." Fletcher kissed Reed's forehead, turned off the light, cracked the door. He checked on Crew next, found him reading under the covers with a flashlight. Fletcher pretended not to notice. "Good night, Crew." "Night, Dad." Finn's room was last. Finn was already asleep, his soccer ball clutched to his chest like always. Fletcher stood in the doorway for a moment, just watching his oldest son sleep. Finn looked so much like Fletcher. Same face, same eyes, same stubborn chin, but Finn was better, kinder, braver, more open. Fletcher had spent 40 years becoming a man he didn't like, and these 3 boys had taught him how to become someone worth being. He went downstairs, made himself tea, sat in his living room. On the mantel was a photo from the Gala 2 years ago, all 5 of them. Fletcher, Sutton, Finn, Crew, Reed, dressed up, smiling. A family. Next to it was the photo of the boys from that first gala, holding the sign. "Dad, we've been waiting for you to come home for 6 years." Fletcher looked at both photos, the before and after, the moment that destroyed his old life and created his new one. His phone buzzed. A text from Owen. "Dinner next week? Want to catch up?" Fletcher smiled. He'd reconnected with Owen over the past year, not as business partners, as friends, real friends. "Sounds good. Thursday works?" Owen replied immediately. "Perfect. Bring the boys if they want." Fletcher put down his phone, looked around his house. Photos of the boys everywhere, their backpacks by the door, shoes scattered around, drawings on the fridge, evidence of life, of family, of love. 4 years ago, Fletcher Hayes had everything and nothing. He was worth $200 million and completely bankrupt in the ways that mattered. Now his net worth was a fraction of that. He lived in a modest house in Evanston. He worked part-time from home. He drove a used Honda instead of a Mercedes. And he was the richest man he knew, because he had 3 sons who called him Dad, who wanted him at their games and their tests and their ordinary moments, who'd given him a second chance he didn't deserve but was grateful for every single day. Fletcher finished his tea, turned off the lights downstairs, went to his bedroom. On his nightstand was a photo from Finn's championship game 2 years ago. Finn in his grass-stained uniform, holding the trophy, grinning at the camera, Fletcher's arm around his shoulders, both of them beaming. Fletcher had won Developer of the Year 4 years ago. He'd held that crystal trophy for 30 seconds before dropping it. But being Finn's dad, being Crew's dad, being Reed's dad, that was an award that didn't shatter. That was an honor he got to keep. Fletcher turned off his light, lay down in bed, listened to the sounds of his house settling. 3 boys sleeping safely down the hall, their mother resting in the guest room, a family under one roof. He thought about the man he used to be, standing on a stage, mocking the woman who'd given him 3 beautiful children, denying those children existed, believing success meant money and power and recognition. That man was gone, dead, replaced by someone better, someone who understood what actually mattered. Success wasn't found in boardrooms or bank accounts. It was found in bedtime stories and soccer games, in burned dinners and homework help, in showing up every single day even when it was hard, especially when it was hard. Fletcher Hayes had lost everything at that gala 4 years ago. His company, his reputation, his awards, his wealth, and in losing everything, he'd found what he'd been searching for his entire life, He'd found his way home. Before you go, I want you to think about something. Fletcher's story isn't unique. It's universal. How many of us are chasing the wrong definition of success right now? How many of us are sacrificing relationships for recognition? Time with family for time at the office? Presence for presence? Fletcher had to lose everything before he realized what mattered. But you don't have to. You can make that choice right now. Today. This moment. Call someone you've been too busy for. Show up to something you usually miss. Put down your phone and actually be present with the people who love you. Because here's the truth. Fletcher learned the hard way. You can rebuild a career. You can recover a reputation. You can make more money. But you cannot reclaim time with the people you love. Those moments pass. Those years disappear. And one day you look up and realize you missed it all while you were chasing things that don't matter. 3 boys in matching suits walked into a ballroom 4 years ago and changed their father's life with one sign. They showed him what he'd been running from, what he'd sacrificed for success that wasn't real. Now Fletcher wakes up every day and chooses differently. He chooses presence over productivity, relationships over recognition, love over legacy, and that choice has made all the difference. If this story moved you, if it made you think about your own priorities, I want you to do something. Leave a comment below and tell me one relationship you're going to invest in this week, one person you're going to show up for, one moment you're going to be present for instead of distracted. And if you know someone who needs to hear this story, someone who's chasing success at the cost of everything else, share this with them. Maybe it'll be their wake-up call. Maybe it'll save them from making Fletcher's mistakes. Subscribe to Love and Twilights with Dr. Phillips for more stories that will challenge you, inspire you, and remind you what truly matters in this short life we're given. Remember what Fletcher learned. Success isn't measured in dollars or trophies. It's measured in the people who want you at their soccer games, the kids who call you dad, the moments you show up when it would be easier to work late. That's success. That's winning. That's everything. This is Dr. Phillips reminding you to choose wisely. Choose love. Choose presence. Choose what actually matters. Because one day you'll look back on your life, and the question won't be how much money you made or how many awards you won. The question will be simpler and more important. Did you show up for the people who needed you? Fletcher can finally answer yes to that question. Can you? Thank you for being here. Thank you for listening to this story. And thank you for taking the time to evaluate your own life and choices. Now go. Call someone. Show up somewhere. Be present. Be the person your family needs you to be before it's too late.